Okay, good morning, everyone. Please do me a favor. If you can hear me okay, please type yes into the chat window. Okay, fantastic, fantastic. It's nice to see everybody in the virtual world this morning, and I hope that you're doing well. My name is Dr. Allen, and I'll be your instructor this semester. It's a brave new world with having to teach a course remotely. It would definitely be my preference that we could all be together in the same room. That helps things go much more smoothly. But with our coronavirus emergency we have right now, we'll do the very best we can and allow you to learn and understand something about human biology. So, okay. You may notice on your own personal web screen that I have turned off your microphones. That's not because I don't want to hear you. It's because that if we have too many people with the microphone on at the same time, the system gets overwhelmed and starts to get garbled. So certainly during our time together, if you have a question that you want to speak out about, feel free to unmute your microphone and speak out. Or alternatively, feel free to type into the chat window and I'll try to monitor that so that everybody has his or her questions answered. Okay, so thank you for some of you being brave enough to have your video cameras on. That really helps me because it's not too fun talking to a computer screen, right? Basically, I'm talking to a computer screen and you're listening from a computer screen. It's not quite the same dynamic as being together in a classroom. So having your video camera on is helpful to me and I think helpful to each other that you can see that you're in class together. So for those that are interested, there are 11 people in this class, okay? So we have 11 people taking this course together this summer. So, okay. Folks, again, welcome. My name is Dr. Allen, and I thought what I would do is start by going over your syllabus, okay? So I sent out the syllabus through email twice, and if you don't have a copy of it, if you did not receive a copy of it, please email me and I will definitely make sure that you get a copy of it. But the syllabus is this document here, okay? And so what I'm going to do is just walk you through page by page to let you know what the course is all about and give you an opportunity to ask questions that may be on your mind, okay? So you are registered for Biology 111, Introduction to Human Biology, and it is section 4023. Okay, we'll meet every Tuesday and Thursday from 11:40 to about 2 o'clock. And of course, on Thursdays, we will have some lab time together, which will be 2:15 to technically 4:10. That will be very liberal. I doubt very much most of our labs will go to 4:10 because there's many activities, unfortunately, we can't do together in a remote setting. But we will at least have some lab activity on Thursday afternoons. Okay, so my name is Dr. Allen. I've been in contact with you through email, and I have my email address on the front page of your syllabus. So if you ever need to communicate with me, which many of you have already done, and that's fantastic, feel free to reach out to me through email, and we'll take care of the concerns that are on your mind. We're not on campus together, so my office at this point is in my home, so I don't really have a way for you to come see me in my home, but I will have virtual office hours for this course every Tuesday afternoon from 2 to 3 o'clock. Basically, after we finish our time together on Tuesday afternoon, I will stay online for anybody that needs some extra support, some extra help. If you have questions, anything going on, I will be happy to give you my attention at that time, okay? So there will be a virtual office hour from 2 to 3 o'clock on Tuesday afternoons. Okay. So your course textbook, I indicated that your course textbook would be this one, okay? Biology of Humans by Good Enough. It's the 6th edition. If you have an older edition of the book, that's okay, because the information doesn't change too much from edition to edition. So if you have the 4th or 5th edition, that will be okay. All right, and let me see here. The lab manual that you may have purchased looks something like this. Okay, it's Biology 111 Lab Manual by Deborah Grinneisen. Deborah Grinneisen is a faculty member at Harrisburg that actually recently retired. So, but that's what the lab manual looks like. Okay, so in this class, there will be 5 grading opportunities for you to earn your grade. You will have 3 lecture exams and you will have 2 lab exams. And I'll talk to you about what the exams are going to be like in a little bit, or if you have questions, I'll be happy to answer them. But just so as we get started here, you know, you will be tested 5 times throughout our summer semester, and your performance on all 5 of those exams will be combined to give you a single course grade. Okay. All right. So at the bottom of the first page of the syllabus, I do have a web link for the tuition refund information. It's very fair that you might be in this course for a week, and you might say to yourself, you know, I just don't feel like this is going well, or you might feel that the summertime's not right for you to take this course. Please know that you can access that web link on your syllabus, and it will tell you how late you can withdraw from the course and still get some of your tuition money back. So that might be important to some of you. Okay, we also have a delayed opening time. You know, this would be if we were together on campus and there was a campus emergency, like a power outage or something. I don't really think we need to worry about that too much here. We shouldn't have any issues with delayed openings for our summer class together. Okay, and of course, we're not on campus right now, but I do have the campus security telephone numbers on your syllabus. If this is your first course at HAC and you intend to take other classes at a future date where we're on campus together, it might be helpful to put these security numbers in your cell phone so you know what they are, you know who to call to get help when you're on campus. Okay, so folks, before I go any further, do you have any questions so far about the first page of the syllabus? Feel free to unmute the microphone. Feel free to type into the chat window. Okay, so I'll always pause. I'll try to pause after I ask a question to give you an actual opportunity to respond, whether you want to do that verbally by unmuting your microphone or typing into the chat window, okay? If I continue and you wanted to say something, just speak up. It's okay. Just say, hey, Dr. Allen, and then I'll stop and address your question. Okay, let's move to the back of the front page where we have the reading schedule. No major surprises here. Okay, today is the 16th of June. We're going to be covering all of chapter 1 today, and hopefully if I get through it, maybe a little bit of chapter 2 as well. Okay, so please do your very best to keep up with your reading schedule. If you read the content before I lecture on it, I think my lecture will make more sense to you. And certainly after I've lectured on a chapter, if you go back and reread it, it just helps put the material into your mind better so you can process it, so you can really put it into your head and help you learn, okay? We will have 3 lecture exams, and they are tentatively scheduled on your syllabus as July 2nd, July 23rd, and the 3rd exam, which counts as your final exam for the course, is August 6th, okay? So that's about 8 weeks away. All right, so please, by all means, if you have any questions about that, feel free to ask. Our lab schedule, again, we're going to be meeting on Thursdays starting at about 2:15 and going till we've covered what we need to cover. Okay, this first week, we will be talking about scientific inquiry and the scientific method. The following week, we will be introducing some ideas about the microscope and microscopy to you. Okay, so you will have your first lab exam on July 9th, and you will have your second lab exam on July 30th. Okay, so on the lab exams, you will be tested on the content of the labs, including the lab manual that you're expected to read and walk through the activities with. And for the lecture exams, you will be tested on the content of the chapters of the textbook that you've been assigned to read. Okay? Do you have any questions right now? Okay. All right, folks. So feel free to speak up. If we turn to the next page of the syllabus, we have some of my classroom policies. To be quite honest with you, most of these policies mean more when we're face-to-face together at school than they do here in a remote setting. But I'll still walk through them to let you know what you can expect. The first is that attendance is mandatory. You know, when HAC and every school across America shut down sometime in March because of the coronavirus emergency, a lot of the typical rules that you might have for a course were kind of pushed aside a little bit because everything was up in the air. And so during that period of time, I did not expect that people attended class because that was unreasonable because of the emergency. But now that we've had some time to consolidate and step back and think about how to return to a normal lifestyle, it is important that you understand that attendance is required for this class. Not that you can't learn without me, but I need to have this interaction with you so at least I know you're completing the objectives of the course. Okay? So attendance is expected. If you have a day where you know you can't be here because you have a childcare issue or a work issue or something that's been planned a year in advance and you know you just need to go to it, hey, okay, no problem. Please send me an email and let me know what's going on with you, and I won't give you a hard time, okay? I won't give you a hard time about it. Okay, number 2 on the syllabus for the classroom policies. Cheating on exams is wrong. Well, we know that, right? We all know that. Please raise your hand at this time if you've ever done anything in your life that in retrospect was probably not a good idea. Okay? My point is that all of us sometimes do things we shouldn't do. Do you know what, folks? When I was 8 or 9 years old, I set my bedroom on fire. I literally took a match to the underside of my bed and set it on fire when I was 8 or 9. Now, some years later, as a father, I realized that was not a good thing to do. Okay? So in a similar vein, I don't want you to cheat. I want you to earn your grade. Okay? It's important that you earn your grade. Now, that being said, since we're not together in the classroom, I really cannot control the testing environment. All of your exams are going to be online. And so that basically means that all of your exams have, at this moment in time, immediately become an open notebook, open textbook exam, because I can't stop you from accessing those materials during your exam. Okay? So my point in saying that is there really is no reason for you to cheat because you're still going to be able to look at your book and your notes when you take exams. Okay? So please do it the honest way because you will benefit from that. Okay. The third thing is that if we were in class together, you know, I would want our behavior with each other to be courteous and respectful. And that would include problems that creep up in the class setting, such as folks having their cell phones out, beeping, and all this kind of good stuff. Hey, one nice thing about our environment here today is that those things are not going to bother each other, and they're not going to bother me. Okay, so the classroom behavior is not so much a big deal online, just as long as we keep our communication professional and respectful. I will treat you as an adult, and I ask that you treat each other as an adult with courtesy and respect. Okay, the fourth item on the syllabus, withdrawal from the course. You do have the option of withdrawing from any hack course up to the 70% completion date for the course, which I don't have a precise date for you, but an estimate would be sometime around the middle of July. You could still withdraw from this course around the middle of July and get a W on your transcript. Okay, so please know that if you take an exam or two and things aren't working well, for whatever reason, there's a good chance that you can still take a W on the course and get out with less of an impact on your GPA. Okay. Number 5 on the classroom policies, incomplete grades. Generally speaking, I do not award incomplete grades. Just let you know that up front. Number 6, for labs, well, you should not bring food or drink in the lab, but guess what? We're not going to be there together. So if you want to have some lemonade with you while you're taking class, that's okay. No problem. Finally, lecture recordings. Well, gang, I am recording this lecture right now. I'm recording. So that means I don't want to say anything that's really unprofessional, and you don't want to say anything that's unprofessional because it's all being recorded, okay? After today's class, I'm going to upload a recording of this video to YouTube, and I will send you the web link to it. So that means in the future, when you're studying and preparing for an exam, you can actually go back to old lectures and review some content that you think might be helpful to you, okay? So these will be recorded, and I will send you the link every afternoon from the lecture that just had. I will record lecture time together, but I will not record the lab time together. I will not record the lab time because that becomes like a 2 or 3 hour recording that nobody wants to watch, okay? All right, so folks, do you have any questions right now? Okay, well, let's finish up the syllabus. If we turn to the next page, you're going to see a section that says, how can I succeed in class? Okay, well, folks, vocab is very important. The vocabulary of the field that you're going to be introduced to is extremely important. For example, how many of you can tell me what the suprachiasmatic nucleus is? Okay, I'll say that again. Suprachiasmatic nucleus. Anybody know that? Well, that's why we're together, because you're going to learn it, okay? The suprachiasmatic nucleus is a group of neurons in your brain, specifically in the hypothalamus, that act as your body's biological clock. So every morning when you wake up without the alarm clock, those neurons are helping wake you up, okay? So there's going to be many strange new vocab words that you need to get comfortable with. And so I do recommend that you have a system of learning these vocab words. One way is to simply make flashcards, right? Have a flashcard, put one term on each flashcard. You have a term on one side of the flashcard, and on the back of the flashcard, you should have 3 definitions for the same term. The first definition should be the definition that your textbook gives you. The second definition should be a definition that I might give you during class together. And the third definition should in fact be a definition that you create in your own mind by thinking about the concept. And if you create vocab flashcards this way with 3 definitions, by the time you've processed all of that, it's going to stick in the brain and you're going to do real well come exam time. Okay? Okay. Secondly, I would encourage you to do the practice questions at the end of each chapter. As an example of, if you have your textbook in front of you at this time, please turn to page 41. Turn to page 41 in your textbook. Okay, it's going to look like this. And it says reviewing the concepts. My point here is that at the end of every chapter that you've been assigned to read, there are questions that you can answer as practice to see if you're actually understanding the content of the chapter. I will not assign these things as explicit homework. I will not be collecting them from you, particularly because in a remote setting that's very hard to do. But if you do these practice questions and you get them all right, that should give you confidence that you're going to do pretty well on an exam. But if you do the practice questions and you get half of them wrong, then it tells you that you have more study that you must do to do well. Okay? So please do the practice questions at the end of each chapter. That really will help you. Okay, continuing. I've mentioned before, please read the chapters before coming to class. If you stay up with your reading, it will make the lectures more meaningful to you, okay? There will be some concepts that I'm talking about, such as how your muscles contract, right? When I contract my biceps brachii to bring my hands towards my face, exactly how does that happen? Well, it happens through a process called the sliding filament model of contraction. And I'll be talking to you about what that is in chapter 6. But there'll be times when looking at a cartoon of a process will be so much more easy to understand than having me tell you something with 1,000 words. And so there will be times when I bring videos into the class, or when I ask you to go look up some videos in YouTube and watch them on your own time. That will help you understand some important concepts that are hard to get the first time you look at them yourself. Number 5, don't be afraid to ask questions. That's why you're here. I want you to ask questions. I've been in biology now for about 30 years, folks. I can answer most of your questions, but there are questions you will be able to find that I won't be able to answer for you. Certain things no one could, but I really want you to ask the questions. That's why you're here. That's what you've paid for, to have some of your questions answered. It seems only fair, since I'm going to ask you a whole bunch of questions, that maybe sometimes you ask me a question. Okay, so please ask questions. Okay. All right, number 6, use the Learning Center. Folks, our Learning Center is not open on the campus, but there are still tutors available online. So feel free to look at the HACC website of how to get access to the tutoring services. If you think that will be helpful to you, if you need that, the tutoring is available online. So please don't think that you're all by yourself here, because that's not true. You're not by yourself. We're all doing this together, and the tutors are available for you. Okay, so please let me know if you need help getting access to a tutor. And you don't have to pay any extra for that, right? That comes with your normal tuition. You already have access to that. Okay, lastly, I think this is kind of a moot point, meaning that it's already done. Please activate and use your HACC email account, your Hawk email account, because if I have to communicate with you, I will be sending out a group email, and I will typically use the hack email system with the hack email addresses, okay? But at any rate, with this remote setting, you can probably expect to receive at least two emails every week from me after each class, with a minimum of the recording link to YouTube so that you have that, okay? All right, folks, do you have any questions? Okay, everybody's very silent, so hopefully that means I'm making sense. Okay, just finishing up what's on your syllabus, you know, the course description. Well, I think the course title pretty much says it. Introduction to Human Biology. Folks, this is a non-science major course. And what that means is that we don't expect that you're going to graduate from this course and go on to become a scientist or go on to become a medical doctor or a dentist. That's not the kind of course that this is. This is an introductory course for people that want to learn about their body at an introductory college level, but are not going to make a career out of it. But we do hope that what you take away from this experience is enough working knowledge about your body that when you go to the doctor and have a doctor's appointment, you feel comfortable talking to your physician about some things that might be on your mind, perhaps about blood pressure, or perhaps about diabetes, or perhaps about a muscle strain. In other words, this course is going to help you understand some of these concepts, so when you're talking to your doctor, more of what he or she says is going to make sense to you in a comfortable way. Okay, so that's what this course is all about. The next page of the syllabus is the learning outcomes. This is simply a list of statements of things that we're going to touch on through the semester. I'm not going to read all of them, but you can see them. Okay, for example, list the basic characteristics that apply to all living organisms. Well, folks, that's covered in chapter 1. You're going to be getting that today and in your reading. So we're already going to hit that. Lab is going to be harder to meet these objectives, and I'm just being honest with you with that, right? How can I teach you to use a microscope when we're not actually touching a microscope? You see the problem. So some of what you learn here will be a little bit watered down, and I apologize for that. It's just the nature of our current unusual circumstances. Okay, the last thing is the back page, okay, where I have several important statements. First off, students in need of accommodation. Okay, students in need of accommodation. Basically, if you have a documented learning challenge or learning disability, we would like you to get into our system, which is coordinated by the director, Ms. Vicki Van Heist. She's our Student Access Services Director, and I have her information there in your syllabus. And if you have, you know, let's just as an example, sometimes I have students that have dyslexia, okay? So that's a learning challenge, right? So if you have a learning challenge of any kind, please contact Vicki Van Heist and she'll get you into her system, and then through that way, I can give you certain accommodations to help you be more successful in the course. And that's totally legal, totally justified because it's medically documented. So please be aware that that is an option for you. And please reach out to me if you need any help with that. Finally, at the bottom of the last page, we have HAC's position on equal opportunity, basically saying that as an institution, we do not intentionally prejudice how we interact with you, how we teach you, how we test you. That's not what we're about here. It doesn't matter what your gender is, what your skin color is. None of those things matter. We're here to teach you how the human body works, okay? So, folks, that's my coverage of the syllabus. Do you have any questions about what's on the syllabus? Okay, so please know that, you know, if we were together in class, typically I would go for an hour and a half and then give like a 10-minute bathroom break so people can use the restroom and get a sip of water, something like that. I won't do that here online. So I might go to 2 o'clock. I might go to 1:45. It depends on the tempo of how things are going. And I'll let you know from day to day, when we're going to end our time together. Okay? But you can always ask questions about that. So if there's no questions, folks, I'm going to read the names. I'm going to read your names out loud as a way of taking roll call. I mean, I do see your names on the Zoom window. And I'm going to please ask those in the future to always sign in with your first and last name. That will help me if I have your first and last name. Okay, but I'm going to read your names, and if I mispronounce your name, and there's a pretty good chance I'm going to, I want to ask you to please unmute your microphone and pronounce your name for me so that I can learn who you are. Okay, so all right, here we go. First, I have Fiona Bagabra.
Yes, I'm here. I'm present.
Fiona, did I say your last name correct?
You were almost there. It's Bagabira.
Bagabira.
Yes.
Okay. Keep me honest, okay? That's going to be a hard one, but thank you and welcome to the course.
Thank you.
Okay. Next I have Matthew Brule.
Yep, I'm here.
Okay. Matthew, do you prefer Matt or Matthew?
Matt is fine. Doesn't matter.
Okay. Next I have Jennifer Diller. Hi, Jennifer. Welcome to the class.
Thank you. You can just call me Jen if you want. Either or is fine.
Okay, thank you. Next we have Elisa Heiser.
Hi, it's just Alyssa.
Alyssa. Okay, thank you, Alyssa. Welcome. Next I have Paquasha Jameson. Is Paquasha online? Okay. Paquasha, I see your name. Are you with us? Paquasha, your sound is very disrupted. If you're with us, please type yes into the chat window. Okay, I got you. Thank you and welcome. Next, we have Pete Mylonis.
Oh, well, yeah. Just call me Pete.
Okay, Pete, welcome. Next, we have Nicholas Stricker. Okay. Nicholas, you prefer Nick? Okay, all right. Welcome. Next, I have Catherine Trout.
I'm here.
Okay, welcome. Next, I have Julia Desai.
Hi, it's Sai.
Okay, it's kind of a silent T.
Yeah.
Okay, welcome, Julia. Okay. Next, I have Quinn Vianu.
Piano, but close enough.
Okay, Quinn, your sound is very, very low. I could barely hear you.
Oh.
Okay. Sometimes we do have these technical challenges, so I'm just letting you know.
Thank you.
And you can always type into the chat window. Okay, so welcome, Quinn. And finally, I have Emily Weaver.
Yep, I'm here. Emily's fine.
Okay, thank you. Okay, folks, so what we'll do next is I'm just going to tell you just a very little bit about myself, and then I'm going to have you introduce yourselves to each other. You know, if I had a class of 40 people, I wouldn't do that because there's too many people. But since we've got basically 11 or 12 people here, 11 students, we can do that, okay? And, you know, I encourage you to make friends with each other. That's a little bit easier to do if we're in the same room together physically, right? Because you can talk to each other in between class and stuff. I would encourage you to make friends with each other and maybe even get each other's email or cell phone number. That way, if you do miss a class, you can call someone up and say, hey, Marcia, hey, Catherine, hey, Julia, hey, Emily, could I please get your notes? Or what did Dr. Allen emphasize during the conversation, the lecture? Or did I miss any instructions about homework? Or did I miss whatever, okay? So I will try to be very clear with you in my communication, but I do encourage you to become friends with each other and help each other out. It makes experience much easier if you know that someone else is sharing your pain, okay? So, okay, my name is Dr. Allen. I've been working in biology for 30 years now. My doctorate is in molecular and cellular biology. My particular area of content expertise is gene expression, you know, DNA, all that kind of good stuff. That's not going to be an emphasis of our time together. We're going to teach you some basic ideas about cells, tissues, organs, organ systems like the cardiovascular system, the immune system, the nervous system. We're going to be talking about these types of things, okay? I'm a Lancaster native. I was born and raised in Lancaster County, but I did most of my graduate work in Maryland, okay? And finally, I'm very disappointed that I can't even watch any live baseball right now because I'm a big New York Yankee fan. And it looks like maybe we're not even going to have a baseball season since the players cannot seem to agree with the league on the conditions for an abbreviated season. So that's just a little bit about me. Okay, so folks, I'm going to read down the list one at a time, and I'm going to ask you to unmute your microphone. Please state your name. Please tell us what your major is. And I mean, if you don't have a major, if it's undecided, that's okay. And please give us an idea of what kind of career you're interested in. I mean, if you're taking a class at Hack, there's probably some sort of career attached to it. So please tell us what your future plans are. Just give us a statement or two so that you get to know each other. Just tell us your name, what your major is, and what you'd like to do in the future. This is very friendly. There's no right or wrong answers here. Just be comfortable, okay? Don't be embarrassed or anything. It's totally okay. All right, so I'm going to go down. Fiona, would you please state your name and tell us a little bit about yourself? Don't forget to unmute your microphone.
Okay, my name is Fiona Bagabira. My major is nursing. Right now, I work in a hospital as a nurse's aide. Of course, I'm looking forward to be an RN someday, and I'll be working so hard to get there. I live in Mount Joy right now. Yeah, that's
Okay.
I think
Thank
that's
you.
it right now.
Thank you, Fiona, and thank you for all your hard work at the hospitals. I know it's very challenging right now. Okay, Matt, why don't you introduce yourself?
All right, my name is Matt. I'm an EET major. This is actually my last class that I have to take for graduation. Had to postpone graduation due to the whole COVID thing. Didn't know what was going to happen through the summer with my work because I work retail for T-Mobile. But once I'm done with this, just going to be looking into an EET job, which is anywhere from biomed to connectors to end item security systems and installations and stuff like that. So a very wide range of things I could work on. I've spent 8 years in the Marine Corps doing electronics maintenance on radios and communications. So I'm very versed in that kind of stuff.
Matt, what does EET stand for?
Electronics Engineering Technologies.
Okay. All right. Matt, thank you for your service. Very much appreciated.
No problem.
Next, how about Jen Diller? Jen?
Hi, everyone. So my major is nursing as well, and I actually work as an esthetician right now in a med spa, and I'm going for my RN so that I can administer Botox and filler. And
Okay.
I also actually live in Mountjoy, Fiona.
Oh, well, there you go. You have a study partner, local. Very good. Okay. Thank you, Jen. Welcome
welcome.
to the class.
Thank you.
Alyssa?
Hi, I'm Alyssa. I am born and raised in Lancaster too. I'm doing this course as the first set of my bio courses so I can apply to the nursing degree as well. I'm going to try for an RN.
Okay, Alyssa, are you going to try for HACS program or for Lancaster? Okay, good.
I work at the hospital too, actually.
Okay, well, HACS is so much better.
That's what I've heard. That's why I'm here.
Okay, I'm obviously biased. Okay, welcome. Paquasha. Paquasha, your sound is Paquasha, I can't hear you. How about you type into the chat window what your major is and what you hope to do in the future? Okay, your major is nursing, fantastic. And obviously that's probably the career you're heading towards. Okay. Okay, good, fantastic. Okay, so we definitely have some folks interested in medical careers here. And I'm not sure if there's anything I can do to help you with your sound issues. If you continue, Paquasha, to have problems with your microphone, we might be able to hook you up with one of our IT people at HAC to try to help you with that. I could not hear you, so might be something we have to play around with some different settings for you. Okay, but welcome, Paquasha. Next, Pete. Pete, go ahead and introduce yourself.
I am currently getting my bachelor's degree in communication at Minnesota. I recently graduated from HAC 2018 or 19, I'm not sure. I forgot. And after I get my bachelor's degree, I'm thinking about getting my master's in communication as well.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, congratulations on your bachelor's degree and welcome.
Thank you.
Nick. Nick, are you able to introduce yourself through the microphone? Okay, Nick, you don't have a microphone. Okay, that's fine. Nick, tell us what your major is and what you think you want to do in the future. Okay, radiology informatics. Fantastic career field. A lot of potential in that. Okay, very good. Welcome. Catherine.
I'm a social work major at Millersville University. I only actually have to take one more class after this one, my field instruction in the spring, and then I'll be done. I work for the school district of Lancaster. My intention is to hopefully get a position within that district or one of the surrounding ones within my major.
Okay. Well, thank you, Catherine, for all your work. Society definitely needs a lot of good people because we got a lot of challenges out there. So welcome.
Yes, we do. Thank you.
Okay, Julia.
Hi, I'm a communication major at Lancaster Bible College, and this fall I'll be a senior, and I live in Brownstown, and I hope to work in marketing.
Okay. Is there any particular kind of marketing, any particular field that's more interesting than another one to you?
Right now I'm in an internship with a nonprofit, and I like that.
Okay. All right. Well, good luck with that. I hope it works out.
Thanks.
Quinn?
Oh, well, I'm going to be a senior in high school, but I plan on going into cytotechnology at Slippery Rock University. So I'm hoping to get some credits at Hack before I get there.
I'm sorry, you started out very quiet, Quinn, and then you did get louder. What kind of technology did you say?
Cytotechnology, which
Okay.
means, well, figured you would know.
Yeah. So, but go ahead and say for everybody else.
Well, it's basically where I would check out people's cells and tell them what they have. Like if they have, I would be the one that detects cancer.
Okay. Obviously, that's an incredibly important job because we don't want to get a wrong diagnosis, right? We don't want to treat
Yes.
people that don't need it and vice versa. So, okay, Quinn, welcome and good luck with that. And finally, Emily.
Hi, I'm Emily. So I'm currently an elementary education major at Penn State Berks. And I'm really interested, I think, in physiology and learning about the function of the body. But my goal is actually to become an ESL teacher. So I'd be teaching English as a second language to students.
Okay.
But yeah, that's the goal.
Fantastic. I have a very good friend in New Jersey that teaches that, and very important job. So good luck
Yeah.
with that.
Thank you.
Okay, folks, I'm happy that we haven't had any major snags here. The technology is for the most part working. Everybody was able to get online, so that's a good thing. So I think we're okay. So do you have any other questions before I actually start content? Okay. So let me just mention to you, and I will give you more instructions about this next week, about how you're going to test online. We're going to be using a website called classmarker.com, where you will register for a free account, and you will be taking your exams on that website. I will give you written and more detailed instructions next week about how to register for it, but I just wanted to let you know that the website's called classmarker.com, and it allows you to do standard things like answer multiple choice, fill in the blank, even essay questions I can ask you on this website. So that's how you'll be tested, and I'll give you information about that next week. This first week, I'm not going to worry about that because I just want to get the course running. Next week, I will provide more information about the testing, okay? So for exams in this course, particularly the lecture exams, you can expect that you will have questions that are designed to test your knowledge of vocab, such as the suprachiasmatic nucleus. And then there will also be questions that are more essay-based, where I'm trying to test your understanding of concepts and physiology, such as helping to explain how the sliding filament model of muscle contraction works, okay? So those are the kinds of questions you can expect on your exams. But, you know, don't worry about that at this time. I'll get you started with it next week, and I'll even give you a practice quiz online that does not impact your grade, but allows you to get comfortable with the technology before you actually have to use it for real testing purposes. Excuse me. So, okay, do you have any questions before we get started? Okay, all right, so we're going to get started on content. And as always, if during the lecture you need my attention, please unmute your microphone and say, hey, Dr. Allen, or type into the chat window, and I will try to monitor that and not get too far past, okay? Because I don't want to lose you along the way. Okay, so we're going to start with chapter 1. Okay, that seems as good a place as any to start. So if you do have your textbook available, please open up to chapter 1. Okay. Now, my sort of philosophy on classes is that when you paid to come to class, you didn't just pay for me to sit here and read the book to you, right? You don't need me to read the book to you. What the heck is that all about? You know how to read. So I'm not going to read your book to you. But what I am going to do is pick out certain topics that I want to talk about, that I know, that I feel are particularly important that you understand and spend some time on. And so I will spend time on certain topics in the text, but I may also spend some time on topics that are not in your text, things that I bring into the course that are not written in your textbook. And that probably is one of the biggest reasons why attendance is very important for the course, because yeah, you can kind of get everything through the chapter reading, but hey, if I bring a topic in that's not in your textbook and I test you on it, then that could be a problem. Okay, so please know that I will sometimes do that. And so, okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start sharing my computer screen with you, and I'm going to manipulate my computer screen so that you see a Microsoft Word document. And I'm also going to have the chat window up next to it, so that if you type something into the chat window, if you have a question or comment, that I'm going to see that while we're taking notes together, okay? The very first thing is we're going to talk about something that is not in your textbook, okay? All right, so is everybody okay? Give me a thumbs up if you're okay. All right. All right. Okay, gang, so bear with me a moment. Okay, so hold on just a second. I need to bring up the chat window. Okay, and I need to bring up the Microsoft document. Okay, if you can see the Microsoft document with today's date on, please type yes into your chat window. Okay, fantastic. All right. You know, if you're having a technical problem, if there's something going on, try to reach out to me. Unmute your microphone, type into the chat window. And if it's a bad situation where you've lost connection, I may not know it, at least not at first, then send me an email, you know, and I'll do what I can to help you. Okay, but we should be okay. We should be okay. Okay, so folks, let's talk about the big three sciences. Okay. I want to encourage you, as we're going through our time here together, that you take your own notes. I want you to take your own notes while we're doing this, because taking your own notes is a physical activity that involves your mind coordinating your muscles. And when you engage the mind to coordinate your muscles to write notes, it helps you learn the content. So even though I'm writing notes on the screen for you, I want you to take your own notes because it will help you. Okay? I will send you this document, but hey, it's going to be what I put down, but you might customize your notes from things that I say but don't write down. Okay? So I want you to take your own notes because it will help you learn. So when we talk about the big three sciences, we're talking about biology, physics, and chemistry. I'm dating myself a little bit, but in the United States of America, at least 30 years ago, when you said the big three automakers, who were they? Who were the big three automakers in America? 30, 40 years ago, who were the big three automakers that made cars and trucks in the United States? Okay. So, all right. So, Matt, I see you put Chevy, Ford, and GM. Well, Chevy is a division of General Motors. So General Motors and Chevy are the same thing. General Motors is one, Ford is the other. What is the third one? AM, American Motors, also known as Chrysler. Yes, yes, yes. Okay, very good. So, you know that, okay, bonus points that won't really give you any bonus to the course. Who currently owns Chrysler? Anybody know who owns Chrysler at this time? No, Buick's part of GM. Fiat. Okay, Matt. Very good. Right. That's an Italian company. Very good. So for the rest of you, you got to go learn your car companies. Okay. So, right, Ford, General Motors, and Chrysler are the big three American car companies, although they're not all really American anymore, right? Because Chrysler's owned by an Italian firm. In science, we have the big three sciences: biology, physics, chemistry. That's not to say that other sciences, such as sociology or psychology or even economics, is not important. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is the three big sciences, the foundational sciences, have always traditionally been biology, physics, and chemistry. So, question. Which of the big three sciences is the foundational science? Okay, which of the big three sciences is the foundational science? If you know the answer to that, go ahead and type it in the chat window. Okay, getting some chemistry, getting some biology. Matt says physics. Okay, so it seems like there's quite a bit of disagreement here about things. Okay, turns out that physics is definitely the foundational science. Absolutely. Okay, well done, Matt. Okay, physics. Okay, physics is the foundational science. So, one of the things about teaching online is, well, one of the things about teaching online is that I can't draw very well like I could on the whiteboard if we were in class together. There will be times when I do bring up a digital pad and draw on it. And you'll see just how bad I am at drawing. But as an example, let me see here. If I had a table and we made this bottom level the foundational level. That's where we would have physics. Physics is at the foundation of the sciences. Okay? So now we have the middle layer and the top layer. So help me out, folks. What science, chemistry or biology, belongs in the middle? Which science belongs in the middle? Okay. All right. Feel free to answer that in the chat window. Okay. Quinn says chemistry. Do you all agree with that? Okay. All right. So yes, it is chemistry. Chemistry is the middle course. Physics is the foundation. Chemistry is next. In other words, the laws of chemistry rest on the laws of physics. The laws of chemistry rest on the laws of physics. And obviously, what's left is actually going to be biology, which, if we're being really anal about what we're talking about, biology is simply, biochemistry and biophysics combined. Okay. All right. So let's get a quick definition of these different fields. Okay. All right. So let's get a definition of physics. Can anybody give me a definition of physics? And folks, there could be multiple different definitions of physics that are equally valid. And this is not a physics course. But what I'm trying to show you, I'm trying to share with you is, just because we're talking about your human body doesn't mean we get to ignore chemistry, and it doesn't mean we get to ignore physics. Okay? So, just because we're talking about your body doesn't mean we get to ignore the influence of gravity and how it influences the motion of blood in your body. Okay, so Matt says universal laws that govern the known universe. I think that's quite a good starting point. Okay, I'm not going to write that down, but I think that's okay. Anybody else? Okay. Well, folks, again, there could be multiple talking points here. Let's use this one as our starting point. Physics is the study of matter and energy. The study of matter and energy. So that begs the question, what is matter? Can anybody tell me what matter is? Everything. Okay, Quinn. So Quinn, I'm going to ask you a question. I'm going to ask you to answer it for me. Is light made of matter? Ah, okay. All right. Except sound and light, maybe. Okay, so there might be some areas where matter isn't everything. Okay, so good. Okay, well, yeah, dark matter. When then we get into some really exotic things, right? We're searching for dark matter, the physicists are. Okay, fair enough. Okay, let's take the traditional route. Anything made of atoms and occupies physical space. Anything made of atoms and occupies physical space. That's atoms. So that means the pen or pencil you're using to write your notes is made of matter. That means the gas molecules of air sitting in your lungs is made of matter. That means the hair on top of your head is made of matter, right? Because all of these things are made of atoms and they occupy space. Okay, what is energy? What's energy? That, to be honest with you, that is often a harder thing to define. What is energy? Now, if I asked you to define love, Love, I bet you I'd get 11 different definitions, and they would all potentially be valid, but not necessarily the same thing. Something is invisible and it is a force. Okay, that's not a bad starting point. A created force. Okay, Alyssa. Well, then we get to the issue of, well, what created the force, right? What created the force? Okay. Okay. All we're doing at this point, folks, is getting your intellectual juices flowing. Okay. So good conversation on the chat window. Let me give you another possible perspective on this. Energy is anything that allows you to perform work. Anything that allows you to perform work. For example, okay, heat. What kind of work can we perform with heat? Heat is a type of energy, isn't it? Heat's a type of energy. What can we do with heat? We can make pasta. Okay, so somebody's hungry. Okay, but absolutely, right? We can cook food. Okay. So Pete, you say exercising. I would change that a little bit. You certainly, when you are exercising, you are releasing heat energy from your body, but you don't use the heat to do the exercise. The exercise is actually powered by biochemical energy in your cells, traditionally in a form that you may have heard of called ATP. Okay, so the whole idea here is that we're just getting our juices flowing and everything cranked up here. So good job. I'm quite okay with the conversation happening. Maintain heat and cold through homeostasis. Okay, so Emily, thank you for that. Again, you would maintain your heat traditionally by shivering, right? And shivering requires muscle contraction. Muscle contraction requires biochemical energy. Okay. Heat can be used to make steam. Okay, Alyssa, so we can use heat coming off a fire to boil water to create steam. Okay, Pete says using a treadmill to convert energy which can be used for heat. Yeah, that's totally okay, Pete. I'm totally okay with that. All right, good. So you folks are getting the idea here. Nicely done. Okay, let's take a look at chemistry. Okay, chemistry. Chemistry can be defined different ways. I'm going to give us a starting point here. It's a study of electron interactions. Okay, sounds to me like many of you have already had some science exposure either in the college or high school environment, so hopefully that word electron is not scary to you. But you know that atoms, which we're going to talk more about in chapter 2, are made of protons, neutrons, and electrons. Well, these electrons have a negative charge and they're attracted to positively charged protons. They are repelled by other negatively charged electrons. So chemistry is the study of electron interactions. Okay. Finally, we have biology. Biology is the study of living things, the study of living things, or at the very least, things that at one moment in life was alive and then has passed away. I mean, you know, we appreciate that we can find fossils of dinosaurs and we know they're not alive today, but they were alive millions of years ago, right? So biology is the study of living things. Okay. Another question. Another question. Do chickens count as dinosaurs? Pete, there is an ancestry there. I'm not an expert on dinosaurs, but I would say probably so. They are a modern day equivalent of dinosaurs that lived a long, long time ago. Another example of a modern dinosaur would be sharks. Okay, if I can learn to spell and work my own computer, we'll be in good shape. Okay, my next question is this. What common language do all three sciences speak? What common language do all three sciences speak? Okay, Matt says Latin, and I get that answer quite a lot. So okay, Greek. Okay. I gotcha, I think, on this one. Anybody else? Okay, there it is. Math. That's right. Mathematics is the common language of the sciences. Okay. So as soon as we type the word math in, everybody's blood pressure went up 10 millimeters of mercury, right? Because a lot of folks are uncomfortable with math. Don't worry about it. I'm not going to beat you up with math in this course. I do beat up my genetics students with math in that course. But this is an introductory for non-science majors. But you appreciate that when we talk about physics, biology, and chemistry, we're talking about topics where we are interested in measuring things. How much does something weigh? What is the body temperature of a person or a dog? You know, we're talking about measuring things, and when you measure things, you measure with numbers and quantities. So mathematics is the common language of the big three sciences, and something you always need to think about. If you're not applying mathematical reasoning to a topic, you're not doing a very sophisticated analysis of the topic. Now, that's not to say that math is the end of our wisdom, so to speak. It's not. Math is the beginning of the wisdom, and there's other things that we need to think about along the way. Okay, questions right now? Okay, all right, so we started the course with something that was not in your book, and I wanted you to get thinking about the relationship between biology and chemistry, between biology and physics, because your body operates in an area where we can't ignore gravity, and we cannot ignore the hydrogen ion concentration in your bloodstream, which would be a chemistry topic, right? Biology rests on chemistry, and chemistry rests on physics, so therefore biology rests on physics. They are all interrelated here. Okay, so next major talking point would be page 3 of your textbook, where your book introduces you to the basic characteristics of living things. Okay. So these are pretty straightforward, folks. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on them, but I will put them into your notes, okay? And basically, I'm looking at the content of page 3 here. The first thing is that all living things, your book says that all living things are made of nucleic acids, proteins, carbohydrates, and lipids. That's true, but it's not necessarily completely comprehensive in its coverage. And we're going to talk about various aspects of this, particularly starting in chapter 2. But for right now, I will reflect what your book is saying. Living things are made of nucleic acids, proteins, carbohydrates, and lipids. Okay? So let me ask you a question at this time. What chemical element is found in all four of these categories? What chemical element is found in all 4 of these categories? The categories being nucleic acid, proteins, carbohydrates, and lipids. What's the common chemical element? Okay. Matt suggests carbon. Do you agree with that? Okay. All right, folks. Feel free to speak up, okay? I need your participation. I want you to participate. It will make the course more enjoyable for you if you don't just sit there, okay? Yes, carbon is definitely the answer there. We're going to be talking more about that in chapter 2. Okay. Number 2, living things are composed of cells. Okay. Question. Are viruses made of cells? Are viruses made of cells? Pete, you say it depends. Alyssa and Nick say no. Alyssa says I think. Okay. All right. Thank you for participating. Okay. Viruses are not made of cells. They are never made of cells. Okay. No. Viruses are not made of cells. So question. Are viruses alive or dead? Are viruses alive or dead? Pete says alive. Not alive. Alive. Okay. All right. Well, folks, the answer is that if you put 100 trained biologists in a room and ask them if viruses are alive or dead, you're going to get 50 that say they're alive and 50 that say that they're dead. The reality of it is they're sort of in limbo between life and death. And as Nick put down in the chat window, they cannot reproduce on their own. That's right. So that doggone coronavirus is causing all sorts of heartache right now. It can't do anything outside a living cell. Okay, it can't replicate. It cannot generate energy. It cannot manufacture proteins all by itself. It can only do something when it enters a cell, when it infects a cell. So viruses are sort of zombies, if you will. They're not quite dead. They're not quite alive. Okay? So I will say kind of both and kind of neither. Viruses require cells to do anything useful. Anything is hot can kill the viruses? Well, that's potentially true, Pete, but the question is how hot? Because some viruses are actually pretty stable. Even if you boil them a little bit, they can survive some boiling. So it depends how hot you want to talk about. Okay, so any other questions right now? So living things are made of nucleic acids, proteins, carbohydrates, and lipids. Living things are made of cells, but in the realm of Mother Nature, there are things that are kind of pseudo-alive and pseudo-dead, and those would be viruses. And of course, we're dealing with that right now. Number 3, living things grow and reproduce. Living things grow and reproduce. Think about yourself, right? You are not the same physical size you were when you were 15 months old, right? You are significantly bigger, right? And if it wasn't for your mother and father reproducing, you and I would not even be here. Unfortunately, the same thing can be said of cancer cells, right? Cancer cells live and grow and reproduce and obviously cause major problems for the body. So this is a common theme throughout our biology course. Number 4, living things use energy and raw materials. Okay? Well, think about the food that you ate this morning for breakfast. Maybe a cereal, maybe a piece of toast or a sausage link, whatever it was you enjoy for breakfast, right? That food is raw material. and it contains biochemical energy in it that your body is converting into ATP so that you can move your muscles, so that you can write your notes, so that you can even think a thought. Please do something for me in your own mind. I want you to visualize in your own mind what you're going to eat for dinner tonight. Visualize what you're going to eat for dinner tonight. As you've done that, as you are doing that, you have broken down thousands and thousands of molecules of ATP in your brain simply to generate an image of the food that you're going to eat. What I'm trying to say, folks, is it requires energy to even think and form a thought. Okay. Number 5. Living things respond to their environment. Okay, you know that to be true. Right now, you are somewhat responding to me, hopefully by taking notes. And what I usually do jokingly in class is say, turn to the person next to you and slap them on the arm. Well, if somebody slaps you, you're probably going to slap them back, right? In other words, we do respond to the environment. We don't sit there like a stone and let something happen to us. We interpret what has happened and we respond. That's a hallmark characteristic of living things. Yes, Quinn, thousands for an image. That's correct. Okay. 6. Living things maintain homeostasis. Okay, we're going to be talking about homeostasis a little bit later, but I think the one that everybody knows about is, you know, your body temperature, right? If you're too cold, you're going to shiver to create heat so that you lift your body temperature back up. And if you're too hot, you're going to sweat to release heat energy to lower your body temperature, right? So, example, shiver when you are cold and sweat when you are hot. Now, homeostasis can involve a lot more other things, you know, such as your pH level of your bloodstream, your glucose level, all kinds of body parameters, potassium levels in the blood, urea levels, sugar levels, all kinds of things that we can talk about at a later time. They all have to be in a certain homeostatic window to maintain health. And then the last thing here, which honestly is not really too much of an emphasis in our course, because we're talking about the human body as an individual human body, but just to complete your notes, populations of living things evolve and have adaptive traits, okay? Traits. Now, that word evolution sometimes is a dirty word in certain areas of the nation, and we're not going to get into topics of evolution here. But I will give you an example of evolution that is very hard to deny, and that would be the development of antibiotic-resistant bacteria that make treating disease very difficult. Okay, so there is a type of bacterium that is commonly found on the surface of skin that is known by an acronym of 4 letters that represents a resistant type of bacteria. Do you know what I'm talking about? Anybody that maybe works in a hospital or clinical setting? Okay, so there is a type of antibiotic-resistant bacteria that lives on the surface of human skin that causes all kinds of problems in the hospital. Do you know what I'm talking about? Do you know okay, COVID-19, Pete, is a virus. It's not a bacteria. Okay, Matt Mercer. Okay, so yes, Alyssa Mercer, right. Okay, everybody's got the idea. You maybe didn't spell it quite right, but you have the idea. Here's what it is. MRSA. MRSA is short for methicillin resistant Staphylococcus aureus. Methicillin resistant Staphylococcus aureus, or MRSA for short. This is what I'm talking about. This is what you were hinting at in the chat window. Nicely done. Okay. The point is this, that you can take bacteria that at one moment of time will be killed by an antibiotic. And through exposure to that antibiotic over time, that microorganism can mutate, change. It can evolve in certain ways that will allow it to live in the presence of that antibiotic. And when that happens, it has developed resistance to that antibiotic. Developing resistance to an antibiotic is definitely a real life example of evolution. Okay? All right, questions, gang? Okay. We're going to switch gears here. I want to highlight the level of organization of matter on page 5, figure 1.3. Okay. The reality of it is that I find with students, there's certain levels of organization that you are extremely comfortable with. You know that the heart beating inside your chest is smaller than your entire body. I mean, that makes sense. It must be smaller to fit inside your body. You know that a car is typically smaller than a truck. And you know that a skyscraper is larger than an airplane. You know these things. But when we start talking about things that are very, very tiny, that you don't spend time thinking about on a daily basis, a lot of times I see confusion in students' thinking process that you might tell me that a virus is larger than a cell, or you might tell me that a molecule is larger than an atom, and those statements are false. So what we need to be sure is that you understand how things are organized from the very small level of matter to the very large level of matter. And so what we're going to do is just walk through with a flow chart of the organization of matter, which pretty much replicates figure 1.3 on page 5. Flow chart of how matter is organized from very small to very large. Okay. So the first thing is going to be an atom. Okay. Excuse me. So can anybody type an example into the chat window of a type of atom? Tell me any type of atom that you know about. Okay. All right. Sodium, oxygen, hydrogen, these are all good examples, and I'll put them down. Good. Good stuff, folks. Thank you. You did excellent. Nick, I'm going to say something about oxygen. Oxygen is definitely an atom. It is definitely an atom that you find on the periodic table of elements. But we have to be very careful in our course, because when we talk about oxygen, we might be talking about elemental oxygen, which is an individual atom, or you might be talking about atmospheric oxygen, which is 2 atoms of oxygen, O2, that are linked together. When we breathe in the oxygen, we're breathing in O2, right? We're not breathing in individual oxygen atoms. Okay, good job. Number 2, if we have atoms and we link them together with chemical bonds, we build molecules, right? Folks, type into the chat window an example of any molecule you know about. Quinn, did you have a question? The idea that you can have multiple forms of these atoms, yes, right? The nitrogen gas that we typically breathe in is also N2. Carbon is not a gas. It's always complex with something like oxygen. So carbon dioxide would be CO2. Carbon monoxide would be CO, an individual atom of oxygen, right? So we always have to be careful of whether we're talking about the elemental version of the atom that you find on the periodic table versus the larger scale version of the atoms that are linked to other things. Okay, so thank you. I'm seeing some wonderful molecules here. CO2 is carbon dioxide. Lipids are molecules. H2O is a molecule. Okay, let me give you a couple of others that I think you already know about. You should know about them because we just put them in your notes, right? If lipids are molecules, doesn't that mean that proteins are molecules? Doesn't that mean that nucleic acids are molecules? Doesn't that mean that carbohydrates are molecules, right? These are all examples of molecules, okay? So if you talk about glucose and you tell me glucose is an atom, well, that's wrong, right? Glucose is not an atom. Glucose is a sugar, which is a type of carbohydrate, so it's a molecule, okay? So I just need you to spend a little bit of time thinking about these things to make sure you understand how matter is organized from small to large. Okay, number 3, we have an organelle. Okay, so organelles are substructures found inside cells. Anybody give me an example of an organelle? Okay, thank you, Nick. Mitochondria is a beautiful example. And give me one more, just one more organelle. Okay. All right, ribosome, Quinn, a ribosome, by some biologists and some textbooks, they would consider it an organelle and others would argue against that. For our purposes right now, I don't see any problem including it, okay? But I'm going to put a couple more in, the Golgi complex and the lysosome. And for the heck of it, how about the nucleus, right? We don't want to forget about the nucleus, okay? All right, now, here I have to take a small tangent, okay? Typically, organelles inside cells are measured in nanometers, okay? They're measured in nanometers, folks, okay? So for example, an individual mitochondrion inside a human cell is typically 8,000 to 10,000 nanometers long, okay? So I just want to try to give you an idea of the scale of these things. But what I've found over the years is for folks that are not into science too much, a lot of times you don't even know what a nanometer is. So question, what is a nanometer? Can you define it for me? What's a nanometer? Now, just how small is this stuff? All right. So, you know, you're sitting at home in front of that fancy computer of yours, and obviously you can Google a lot of things. And obviously you can Google a lot of things during your exams, which honestly, as a teacher, is something I don't like because I want to know what's in your brain, not in Google. But at any rate, a nanometer is 1 billionth of a meter. 1 billionth of a meter. Yes, that's right, Matt. Okay. So 1 nanometer equals 1 times 10 up to a power of -9 of a meter. 1 times 10 to the -9th power of a meter. Okay? That's something that you and I don't spend our daily lives thinking about too much. I mean, I probably do more than you because of what I teach. But, you know, when's the last time you thought about the size of the transistors in the computer chip of your computer? Right? Because those are typically measured in nanometers. Here's a question for you. Well, I guess we need to, okay. So here, to make this more real to you, how many inches are in 1 meter? How many inches are in 1 meter? Anybody know? Wow, boy. See, we need a lab at school where we talk about measuring units. Okay, can anybody tell me how many inches are in a yardstick? Ah, good stuff. Okay, right. A yardstick's 3 feet, right? So that's 36 inches. So a meter stick is 3 inches longer. It's 39 inches. Okay. All right. So now you all have an idea in your mind, in your head, how big a meter stick is. Okay. Think about a distance of 39 inches between two of your hands, right? Separate your hands at home by a distance that you estimate to be 39 inches. That would be 1 meter. Now, that distance between your hands, if you were to chop it up into 1 billion evenly divided segments, one of those segments would be 1 nanometer. Okay, if you take 39 inches between your hands and you chop it up into 1 billion evenly divided segments, that is 1 nanometer. So getting back to the mitochondrion, if you were to take that space between your hands of 39 inches, chop it up into 1 billion evenly divided segments, and count out 8,000 of those tiny segments, that would be the length of a mitochondrion. Okay? That's the kind of scale that we're talking about when we're measuring objects inside a cell. Okay, questions? One more question just to see if you folks are paying attention. How big are the transistors on a modern AMD computer processor? I know because I recently invested in a new machine, and so I was reading about this stuff. Right, really small. They are, okay? They are 7 nanometers long. 7 nanometers, folks. Okay? What I'm trying to point out is humanity, humankind, men and women. We have developed the technology to manufacture devices like the transistors on the computer chips that run our cell phones and tablets and computers and everything we find in electronics these days. We have developed technology that can manufacture things as small as a lot of the things we find in living cells that Mother Nature uses. Okay? That's pretty amazing if you think about it. Okay, let's continue. Let's see here. I'm sorry, in the flow chart up there, number 3 should have been organelle. I'm going to continue the flow chart. So flow chart continued. Okay. Number 4 is tissue. Excuse me, no. Number 4 is cell. Okay. So an example of cells, well, I'm not sure how much bio you've had in the past. Can anybody tell me what the 2 major categories of cell life on the planet are? There are 2 broad categories of cell life on the planet. Do you know what they are? Okay, thank you, Quinn. Exactly right. You have eukaryotic cells, like human cells and fungi, etc., and prokaryotic cells, like bacteria. Okay, prokaryotic cells would be bacteria. Folks, we're going to talk more about that in chapter 3. So right now we're just doing an outline. Okay, all right, so those are your cells. Here's a question for you. Here's a question for you. How many human cells make up your human body? How many human cells make up your human body? Okay, Quinn says over a trillion. Quinn, you are in the right scale. You are in the right ballpark, but it is more than 1 trillion. Anybody else? Okay. So gang, obviously there's not a single answer here because we are all different people of different shapes and sizes and body weights. So the average range that is quoted for this kind of question is anywhere from 50 to 100 trillion. 50 to 100 trillion human cells make up your human body. Okay. So let me put an idea in your head. If you're paying attention to the news these days, there's a lot of unhappy people out there. A lot of unhappy people, a lot of protesting, a lot of violence, a lot of stuff. Well, you know, we have how many people on our planet? Somewhere over 7 billion people on our planet, and we can't get along. And yet within your one human body, you have maybe 100 trillion cells that are getting along, that are cooperating with each other so that the heart doesn't attack the kidneys and the kidneys don't attack the gallbladder and the gallbladder doesn't attack the thymus and the thymus doesn't attack the brain, right? So Mother Nature has been able to achieve what society itself cannot, and that is have a whole bunch of cells that get along with each other, because a whole bunch of people on the planet really cannot get along with each other. Okay, let's continue. Flowchart. Number 5 is tissue. Okay, for example of tissue, Well, I'll give you the tissues, and folks, we're going to be introduced to the tissues in some detail in chapter 4, but the big 4 categories of tissue are epithelial tissue, connective tissue, muscle tissue, and nervous tissue. Okay, and we'll be exploring that down the road. Okay, number 6 here. Once you put tissues together, you can build actual organs. And an organ is simply a 3-dimensional object made of multiple tissues joined together. So, you know, you can pick your favorite organ to talk about. Heart, the urinary bladder, brain, ovary. To be honest with you, every individual bone of your skeleton is an organ. So, you know, we can talk about your femur. These are all examples of organs. Okay, organs. Next, we have organ systems. Number 7. By organ system, I'm talking about, again, you know, the urinary system, the respiratory system, the lymphatic system, which would include your immunity, the immune system. We include the nervous system, right? It's kind of a loaded question because all you have to do is, well, let me see here. One of the chapters of your book contains a picture of all the organ systems. I guess it's not chapter 1, but can anybody tell me how many different organ systems are found in your body? Yes, Emily, good job. There are 11 of them. There are 11 organ systems. Folks, we will learn some detail about many of them in this course. We won't get to every one of them. We just can't do that in 8 weeks, but we will cover a pretty good amount. All right. So we have organ systems. If you take the organ systems, then we get to the individual. Okay, the complete human body. Or, you know, if we're talking about a dog, the complete dog body, or the complete cat body, or whatever animal you want to talk about. Okay, now on figure 1.3, your book goes a little bit further, but I'm going to stop here because, as I said, for this course, we are really interested in how an individual body works. We're not going to be talking about the interaction of peoples. That's more of a sociology or perhaps psychology topic. We're going to stop here at the individual person. Okay. All right, folks. Do you have any questions right now? Okay, please let me know if you're having any issues, anything you want to ask about, okay? There really is no dumb question, and I mean that sincerely. Do not be embarrassed to ask questions. There really is no stupid question, okay? So, all right. The last talking point from chapter 1 is simply an introduction to the scientific method. And we're going to do that in just a moment. But I'd like to talk a little bit about science itself before we talk about the scientific method, okay? Using science to understand the world around you. Okay. So folks, let's open up the virtual floor here, and you tell me either by unmuting your microphone or typing into the chat window, what do you think science is? What do you think science is? This is a little bit of a philosophical topic, but I do find value in sometimes talking about philosophical topics. What do you think science is? Okay, humans trying to understand their surroundings. So Quinn, does that mean that I can include, so does that mean that science is a religion? Because religion also tries to help us understand things. A way to understand the world or universe using data. Okay, I like that, Alyssa. Very nice. Okay. Knowledge about the body. Okay, so if we're talking about the body, I could see that. Okay, those are all some good ideas. Anybody else? Okay, I like what was said there. And please understand, even if for example, Quinn, I pushed back on your comment. It doesn't mean you did a bad job. I'm just trying to get you to think. Okay. So finding cures to issues with the body, an approach to understanding the universe and how things function. Some put science over religion is Quinn's comment. Okay, this is all good stuff. And, that's what I want from you is that participation, all right? Because this will be an awfully boring experience if we don't get the participation. The question about stuff. Yeah, absolutely. Now there, Pete, again, I would push back about religion because lots of things I question about in a context of a religious conversation, right? Okay. So there's many possible answers here. Many possible answers. But let me throw an idea out. First, science is a human activity. It's a human activity. It's something human beings do, right? Human beings make measurements on things, right? We measure how cold something is, how hot something is. We measure gas pressure in the steel cylinders we use to connect to our gas grills to barbecue, okay? So science is a human activity. It's something that we do. And my point here is that if science is a human activity, it is flawed because humans, even to our best attempts, are flawed, right? All of us are flawed. We all make mistakes. I make mistakes every day. Everybody does. Science is a human activity, and therefore it is susceptible to the errors and prejudices and biases of human beings. This means science as a process that is done by people is susceptible to bias, errors, and prejudice. Okay? Basically, what I want you to think about, folks, is that science is definitely not a perfect process because it's something that humans do. And humans don't do anything perfectly, even though sometimes we strive to do it perfectly. We don't ever usually reach that goal. Okay? All right. Science, as some of you have alluded to in your comments, is supposed to be a logical, rational way of measuring things and figuring things out. When I say measuring things, I mean quantifying things and developing answers to questions. Okay? Now, keep in mind that generally speaking, religion is a faith-based activity. And that does not make it a bad thing. I'm not downplaying the importance or significance of religion, and I'm not in any way saying that religion is bad. I'm just saying it is faith-based, right? We deal with topics that are philosophical that we may or may not ever be able to get an answer to. But those sorts of things don't belong in the context of science. Science deals with things that we can observe, that we can measure, and that we can get an answer to, such as how much does your cat weigh, right? I can put your cat on a scale, on a balance, and I can figure out that the cat weighs 12 pounds. I can get an answer to that. The problem is that there are certain areas of our daily experience that we would like an answer to, but often we have a hard time quantifying an answer to it, okay? Such as, how do you quantify how much somebody loves another person, right? That's something that we might ask science or psychology to do, but it's really hard to get a good answer on that, okay? So religion is faith-based. Science is evidence, meaning data-based, okay? And when you go to the hospital because you are sick, you know, the importance of prayer to heal someone is well documented, right? People do better if they pray. Whether that's a placebo effect or not doesn't matter. The reality of it is, if you pray because you believe in something important, you tend to do better than someone that doesn't. But religion is faith-based and science is evidence-based. And when your doctor is treating you, you want to be sure that the doctor is using sound evidence-based medicine, that they're not giving you the wrong drug for the wrong problem. Okay? All right. Thoughts or questions, gang, about what science is? Okay? I don't want you to think because you're taking a science class and you're being taught by someone who considers them a scientist that we always have the perfect answer to things, because that is far from the truth. There are plenty of things that we cannot adequately explain in science that are extremely important to our daily experience as a human being. Very, very important things. But at the same time, within the realm of science, we need to consider what kind of things can we adequately address, what kind of things can we adequately answer, what kind of things can we adequately measure. And all along, we need to be aware that science is a human activity where it's going to be imperfect because we make mistakes. Okay? All right. Could science be different to other civilizations in the universe? I don't see why not, Pete. The word science itself doesn't have to have a common meaning, right? I mean, in a really ridiculous kind of analogy, you know, language does not have to be consistent between peoples. So I could envision an alien civilization whose use of the word science means what we typically mean as religion. And they use religion for what we typically mean as science. So I don't think it would have to be the same. Okay. Other thoughts, questions? Okay. So, folks, what we're going to do next is walk you through the steps of the scientific method on page 6 and 7 of your textbook. Okay. And so let's start that. An example of using the scientific method to answer a question. Okay. Now, I'm going to tell you up front that I'm going to do some things here that are intentionally wrong. Intentionally wrong because I want you to pick out the errors in what I'm doing. Okay? So, towards the end of class today, I'll be talking to you about the first lab on this Thursday and how I'm going to give you a little bit of homework before Thursday so that we can talk about some things in lab on Thursday. It's going to be related to the scientific method here. Okay, so let's step through this together. The very first thing you do when you're using the scientific method, which is simply a way of reasoning and thinking about a topic, the first thing you do when you're using the scientific method to answer a question is you make an observation. You make an observation. Okay. Now, so rather than keeping this very academic, I want to try to actually do it with you in a virtual way. So let's say, for an example, that here's an observation that I've made. Let's say that I've observed that every time I go to the local pub and have a pint of beer, I seem to have to pee 30 minutes later. That's going to be an example of an observation I can make in life, right? You might go to the pub to have happy hour with some friends, and you observe that after you consume a beer, 30 minutes later, you got to go to the restroom. Okay? Now, it doesn't really matter that it's at a pub, but I'll just state it that way, right? It could be every time I drink a pint of beer at home. Every time I consume a pint of beer at a local pub, I have to pee 30 minutes later. That is an observation. Okay, notice it's not a question. It's not a question. It's simply a statement of something you are observing, that you're witnessing, that you're realizing. Number two, from the observation, you develop a question. You develop a question. Okay, so the first step is observation. Second step is question. The example here would be this. Okay, I don't want that to be underlined. Okay, the question might be this. From the observation, does drinking beer make me pee 30 minutes later? Does drinking beer make me pee 30 minutes later? Okay, it could be that that's simply a coincidence. I just don't know. Okay, so I had an observation and then I develop a question. Number three, from the question, you form a hypothesis. Okay, now we have to be careful here because a hypothesis is never a question. Okay, a hypothesis is never a question. If you write down a hypothesis and it's in the form of a question, you have done it wrong. Okay, so as an example, here's my hypothesis. Drinking a pint of beer will cause me to pee 30 minutes later. Okay, notice it is not a question. I'm not asking if I drink the beer, will it cause me to pee? I'm saying drinking a beer will cause me to pee 30 minutes later. I'm making a statement. The important thing here is that you notice the hypothesis is not a question. It is never a question. And also notice that the hypothesis, if it's going to be a useful hypothesis for science to do something with, it has to be a testable idea. Drinking a pint of beer will cause me to pee 30 minutes later. Is that a testable hypothesis? Could Could I, in fact, drink a pint of beer and wait 30 minutes and see if I got to pee? Is that something I could literally, physically do? Well, I hope you see that I could. In fact, I have many times. Okay? So, the hypothesis must be a testable idea to be useful, right? You could have a hypothesis that you could never test. And while it might be philosophically interesting to state the idea, you can't do anything with it. Okay? All right. So, next. Okay. Following the dogma of your textbook, I'll use your textbook because I don't want to confuse you. Your textbook says you have to make a prediction. So basically, you restate the hypothesis as a prediction. Okay? As an example, if I drink beer, then 30 minutes later, I will have to pee. Okay? To be frank with you folks, I don't know many scientists that bother with the prediction because as you see, the prediction is really an alternative way of stating the hypothesis. So I guess in the academic world, we have to be this way and state it for textbooks, but most practicing scientists I know don't really make a prediction. They simply work off the hypothesis. Okay. So there we have it. If I drink beer, then 30 minutes later, I will have to pee. Number 5. Now you need to develop an experiment to test your hypothesis. Okay. So, folks, to be quite frank with you, developing a good experiment to test a hypothesis is a lot harder than you might think. And that's why the conclusions of some scientific experiments can often be called into question, because during the development and design of the experiment to test the hypothesis, something wasn't considered properly by scientists. Okay? All I'm saying is that doing really good science is actually really hard work. Many folks that don't do science don't appreciate it, okay? It's really, really hard to do a clean experiment that leads to an unambiguous result, okay? But at any rate, so let's say for our experiment here, here's what I'm going to propose, okay? For our experiment here, to test our hypothesis that drinking beer will cause me to pee, what I'm going to do is have a coworker join me at the pub and not drink, okay? For 2 reasons. Number 1, I need to have a control where a person's not drinking. And number 2, I want to have someone that can drive me home safely, right? A designated driver if I'm going to be drinking. So I'm going to have a coworker join me at the pub and not drink. And then and if you're the one doing it, would be you. I will drink a pint of beer and wait 30 minutes to see what, if anything, happens, okay? So obviously, this is a very bare bones experiment that I'm proposing, and we're just doing this to illustrate the scientific method. There could be several holes in my experiment that I'm proposing, and in just a moment, I'm going to be asking what you think are some weaknesses in my experiment. But just hold on to that. But hopefully right now, you're looking at the experiment and saying, well, this is not very good. Okay, so hold on to that. So you develop your experiment. Okay, you develop your experiment, you do your experiment, you gather your data and collect results from the experiment. Okay. And so let's say in our example here, that in our current example, what I found from the data was my coworker, who by the experiment in step 5 joined me at the pub and did not drink, my coworker did have to pee. And me, the person, or you doing the experiment, you, me, drank a pint of beer and I did not have to pee. I did not have to pee. Okay. Step 7 is analyze the data and form conclusions. Okay. So bear with me here because I'm sure you're seeing problems in this experiment, and that's exactly what I want, is for you to see problems. Looking at our data in step 6 here, we have to look at our data at face value and develop our conclusions. So my coworker had to pee, even though my coworker did not drink a beer. And I did drink a beer, and I did not have to pee. So please type into the chat window, does our data from our hypothetical example experiment right now, does it support our hypothesis? Does our data support our hypothesis? Okay, our hypothesis is drinking a pint of beer will cause me to pee 30 minutes later. So my question is, from our example data here, does this data support the hypothesis? Okay, several of you have said no, it does not. Okay, so our data does not support our hypothesis. So our conclusion, based on the data, is that drinking beer does not cause me to pee. Okay, 30 minutes later. Okay, does everybody see how the data does not support our hypothesis here? Okay, so now we're getting short on time. I'm going to ask you to give me just a little bit of time so I can finish this and get you your homework assignment. The last step that is not really written in your textbook, but I'm going to put it down here, is that you have to evaluate what you've just done and see if there's any reasons to question it. Okay? Evaluate the process you have just done, the conclusion reached, and see if it is trustworthy. Okay, so you tell me, do you see any problems with the experiment that has just been done? Please type in any problems you see with this experiment. Okay, so Quinn, you put in one already. Did the coworker have drink before they even came to the pub, right? Did the coworker drink something before going to the pub? Okay. The control is not well suited to the test, Alyssa. I agree with you, okay? Because notice what the hypothesis is. The hypothesis is drinking a pint of beer will cause me to pee 30 minutes later. So my control really should not be my coworker, right? It should be me on different days, either having a beer or not having a beer. So the control is of questionable value. Okay. Negative control is of questionable value since the hypothesis was about me, not another person. Right? Okay, so, right, so Pete, you say about the person's bladder, right? Maybe you're a 6'5", 270-pound linebacker who can drink a beer and not have to pee, and your coworker, which you took to the bar, was a 100-pound woman, and obviously her bladder is going to be smaller, so she might have to pee, right? So, what is the size of each person's bladder? All right, Alyssa. Okay, so Jennifer, you talked about water pills, right? Are there any medications involved that might influence the outcome? Okay, so good stuff, folks. Alyssa, you had another one. If you are the only subject, are you also controlling for any outside issues like eating or drinking, or the brand of beer, right? The alcohol content of the beer. That's all good stuff. So do you quickly see how there's many issues here in this simple little experiment that literally need to be carefully considered and controlled for as much as is humanly possible to get data that you could trust to make a trustworthy conclusion about whether drinking beer causes you to pee or not. Pete, right? What about the age, right? Maybe I'm 24 and maybe my negative control person is 67, right? There's all sorts of things. Again, there are many factors that can bias the outcome of an experiment so that it is not trustworthy. Okay? So, give me a yes or no through the chat window. Would you trust this result based on the data? Would you trust the result that we've got here? Okay. We wouldn't trust it, would we? But yet we kind of all know that generally speaking, drinking alcohol, which is a known diuretic, does force you to produce urine, so you're going to have to pee later on, right? I mean, we know that, but our data does not support it. So since this experiment is not trustworthy, we should do what? What should we do, folks? If we need to get a good answer here, what should we do? What should we do? Well, since we're getting close on time, let me tell you what we should do. Okay, good, Emily. For my new hypothesis, design a better experiment. Okay, we might want to restate our hypothesis in a tighter way, a cleaner way, but we definitely need to redesign the experiment and take into account these issues that we've identified so that we can get data that we trust. Okay, we need to redesign to get better data. Okay, folks, any questions so far? Give me like 3 minutes and I will turn you loose. Any questions? Okay, here's the deal. I'm going to stop sharing the screen with you right now so you can see me as I talk to you about your lab assignment. Okay, so bear with me. Here we go. Okay, hey, I don't see anybody's passed out, so I guess everybody's okay. Fantastic. All right, gang, we've come to the end of our time. And I've basically covered chapter 1. So you expect on Thursday's lecture, I will start chapter 2. For Thursday's lab, okay, for Thursday's lab, if we were physically going to be together, we would do a little experiment together where you think about the scientific method that we've just done together with this funny little beer example. Now, in reality, I can't have you drink beer at school, and I'm not going to ask you to drink beer at home. I can't do that, okay? But what I would like you to do is in your lab manual, I would like you to read through the content of the lab manual and do as much of it as you can for Thursday. And then on Thursday, when we're together, we will walk through the content and answer questions that you couldn't answer for yourself. Now, if you do have the lab manual in front of you, page 7 of the lab manual is going to propose an experiment that they want you to do. And all you need to do this experiment is a ruler. Okay, you need a ruler and you need another person that's willing to help you. So a family member that you live with or a friend that you hang out with. And the whole idea of the experiment is we want to test the hypothesis that your dominant hand is going to be faster at catching a dropping ruler than the non-dominant hand. So let's say I'm a lefty. That's my dominant hand. I write with that. So my hypothesis is that if there's a ruler being dropped, I will catch it faster with my dominant hand than with my non-dominant hand. I want you to do that experiment with a family member or a friend at home, and I want you to write that data down from your results on page 9 of your homework, page 9 of your textbook, page 9 of your lab manual. I want you to do the experiment and get some data, okay? Because once we get data, we can do the rest of the activity together online as a group, okay? So to make this a little bit more interesting on Thursday, I need you to do the experiment in your lab manual for lab number 1 of catching a dropping ruler for Thursday's lab, okay? You'll have fun with it. It's a funny thing because you might be amazed at how good or bad you are. And you can have the person helping you actually do it themselves and get some other data for the other person, okay? So just get some data that we can talk about for Thursday's class. Gang, do you have any questions before we close up for today? Okay, then I'll wish you a good afternoon. I'm going to stop the recording, but I'm going to keep the video window open for the next hour, which is my office hour. If you need me, you can log in and I will be here, okay? Otherwise, have a good day. Stay safe. I'll see you on Thursday at 11:40. See you, folks.
Okay.